there was a lot of them. I think the stuff that surprised me the most was just how in depth Animal Kingdom is. That for me, that's my favorite park.
Oh, we have
Um,
to get you on with Ryan.
oh yeah, I know.
Another Animal Kingdom
I
fan.
know he's a big fan. Yeah.
I make fun of him all the time. Hello, everyone. This is DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and me, Jason Dodge, and this is the weekend review of December 12th, 2020. The DBC Pod is the show where we search across social media and find out what you guys are talking about. And instead of hitting reply or retweet, we talk about it here for your listening pleasure. We got a lot to talk about this week, mostly news-related show, but we also have a special guest. We got Tony Lobuzzetta. He's an author of a fantastic book, The Disney Details, Volume 1, available on Amazon right now. Tony, thank you for coming on the show. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you guys for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So we are going to BS all about Disney today. So, Tony, if you're not familiar with the show, we're going to go through the news. And then typically we have a whole bunch of topics that we talk about. But you being the first author, actually, no, second author to be on the show, can't forget about Len Testa. He actually writes all the books too, other
Sure.
than
Yep.
running all of his other businesses. Can't forget about the book that started it all, I guess. We're gonna basically, our topic is your book for the show, because I think the fact what the book is actually all about, all the details of Disney, we could probably spend 5 hours talking about it. So
Yeah, I think it'll be a good conversation.
yeah, a lot of breathing room for that. I'm pretty stoked about to find out what you wrote about. Also, reminder, second to last bonus episode of The Mandalorian went up yesterday. Apologize for the delay and all of that. Usually we post these on Friday night, Saturday morning for the Mando, and then Sunday night, Monday for the weekly show. But I just moved to a new house, and yeah, it was exhausting, Phil. I mean, I just got internet yesterday, so let's put it that way. It was kind of tough. I didn't want to record from my phone because that was also breaking up. In any case, Phil, there's not too much news, right? It's pretty light on the news section.
Yeah, there's a couple of smaller news items or things that are happening around the parks, but the really big news item, and that we sort of previewed it last week, was about Disney having their Investor Day held on Thursday, December 10th.
It's
And
big.
it was about 4 hours long, and everybody seemed to really love it. They were all over it. It reminded people of like when Apple does one of their sessions or something like that. It just kind of got people pretty jazzed up, and the stock price responded quite well as well. So I guess we'll see if they keep doing these going in the future. I know this year was a little different because they wound up canceling, Destination D, and there's no D23 and things like that. But a
Let me
lot of
throw
good stuff
you.
came out of it.
Let me throw you a curveball, Phil,
Uh oh.
because the investor stuff is really awesome. Let's get the couple other little things that you
Sure.
wanted to bring up first, and then we'll dive into the investor stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So a couple of things that happened around the parks. First one was that we started seeing the barges, or at least the first barge related to Harmonious in the lagoon in Epcot, was installed. So one of the comments was just how big these barges seem to be.
Huge.
Yeah, and I guess the sides of them are LED screens, so that'll be part of the show. And we also know that they're going to have fountains, and they'll actually be using them for fountains during the day, which I think will be nice. But for now, it just looks like this big, giant black thing, like in the middle of the lagoon. Seen a couple of bloggers kind of commenting about how it like ruins the view and stuff like that. Which, yes, if you take pictures from certain angles, it does kind of block things. But
Get over
I'm
it.
going to wait. I know I'm gonna wait until the fountains are going and stuff like that. But I mean, you can't really complain about not having new things and new technology, and then they install something and then you complain about it. But
I
Tony,
like the idea. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I like the idea of it being fountains to use during the day because I was really upset when the Fountain of Nations left. I loved that thing, and I
Mhm.
thought that's such an iconic thing in Epcot. So I like the fact that there's still going to be some semblance of moving water in the
Yeah.
place.
No, it's great. And Tony, just so you know, I'm not a traditionalist when it comes to Disney. I'm all about change and innovation, and I want to see all. You gotta keep the old, right? And you got to keep it, and you got to keep the sense of like history and everything. I totally get that, but I'm the type of person like I don't. You can get rid of some of the nostalgia for some of the better stuff if it's warranted. Like I'm not saying you tear down the people mover and the carousel of progress, but I'm all about innovation.
Although
Yeah,
you have said on
Walt did say it's not a museum. He said it's
That's it.
constantly evolving.
That's it. I'm all
And
about
another thing going on at Epcot is that Disney has officially taken over the Morocco Pavilion. We had talked about this
Oh
earlier, where
wow.
the third party that was operating all the shops and the restaurants, I guess, owed money to Disney. Obviously, with everything being closed, it wasn't helping them pay their bills. So actually, Disney took over all the restaurants and shops and everything. So right now, they're kind of consolidating some of the shops into one area. They've added more sort of Aladdin related stuff, less of the really kind of more authentic merchandise. One thing that was nice, they set up a lot more tables around the area just for people to hang out.
Oh, that's
And I
nice.
and I think one of the big changes is Spice Road Table, which is actually one of my family's favorite restaurants. They're reopening it. I think today actually was the first day that it reopened with a slightly different setup and pared down menu, but it's going to be more of like you don't need a reservation or anything like that. You just kind of place your order and you go sit down and stuff like that. So I think that's an absolutely
Kind of like a
great,
Panera.
a little, yeah, I guess a little like a fancy Panera. Um, but I really love the location. That was always one of our family favorite spots. Especially we would get a reservation to watch Illuminations at the time from there. Which after a long day, having a glass of wine, sitting there watching the show, it's kind of great. So I'm glad that they're keeping it going. So we'll see, what they do over the long term. But I think it's sort of an interesting situation with Disney having to take over the pavilion.
Morocco does have a great feel of authenticity to it. I
Yeah,
really hope they're able to keep that even with the changes because it really there's so much uniqueness to that one.
yeah.
What's the other restaurant that's in Morocco? The sit down restaurant.
Marrakesh
Yeah,
restaurant,
Right.
Marrakesh.
I was supposed to go there last summer, but the family canceled because it was like the weather was awful and the kids were really cranky. I was really looking forward to going in there, and I missed it.
We've only eaten there once. We did actually it was during Food and Wine, and they had a lunch wine pairing special thing. So
Hmm.
that's the only time we've eaten there. We liked it. We like that type of food.
So do
But
I.
that's the only time we've eaten there was just for that like special lunch.
you guys fans of Tangerine Cafe?
It's I like it. We've only eaten there a few times. I know some people absolutely love it. It's kind of like their
Oh,
go
yeah,
to.
that's me. My
Yeah,
all-time favorite place.
that's always been the problem with Epcot. There's like too many
Exactly.
good food options, but that I know that's a popular one for a lot of people.
I'm just waiting for the kids to get older where I can actually bring them in to sit down restaurants, and their palates are bigger than maybe pasta and pizza.
Yeah. One thing we
Eventually,
actually really liked at Spice Road Table was the kids meals, where they had a lot of sort of basic stuff, but it was just a little bit different. Like they had a slider that was a little different, and then it came in this tray that had like three different compartments, and then one had hummus with carrots, and then French fries. So I don't know, it was one of those nice things where it was like
huh?
approachable enough for most kids to eat it, but a little bit different that it wasn't just your regular chicken fingers and hot dog and stuff like
That
that.
reminds me because my kids loved the Skipper Canteen last year.
Oh yeah,
It was the first time I've
Oh
ever been
wow.
there. It was
you got to
surprising,
give your
but
kids more credit.
there you go. You have to give them some credit. They don't
Some
earn
credit.
much.
I have adults in my family that wouldn't go to Skipper's Canteen, so yeah, give those kids credit.
There you go.
And then the last little item I was going to talk, I kind of grouped a whole bunch of things together, but we always like to focus on when there is positive news in 2020. So there's been a lot of construction movement happening at Walt Disney World. So just to list off a few things that have come up in the last couple of days, uh, the canopy on Tron continues work. I think it's nearing completion, or at least of the frame, the main frame. The central beam for at the Polynesian was being replaced, and it's basically the main beam is now back in there. So it's nice to see that move along. One of the new things that I wasn't expecting was I know they had been working on the front queue of It's a Small World, and that had been covered with tarps and stuff. So some of that has come down, and it's got an all new kind of look to it with really bright colors, and so it should really stand out once it's done with that. Um, Tony, you were talking about water and fountains at Epcot. That new fountain that's in the front that has the three glass pylon things.
Mhm.
There's been reports that water has started flowing there, so that must be getting close
Oh,
to
that's great.
fully opening. So yeah, so we're not going to have the fountain nations, but we'll have the one in the front.
Exactly.
There's been some testings, and you guys have previewed everything, but you mentioned the people mover, Jason. But there's testing on the People Mover. So hopefully that's getting closer to
Did they put your
reopening as well.
bar on the back of each car yet?
Not yet. I'm still
Okay.
waiting for that. I still think they could make a lot of money if they sold dining options while on the People Mover and just let you go around a couple times.
I'm glad to hear that People Mover news, though. I was starting to get a little nervous.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely nervous. When with what happened at Disneyland, you're always a
Yeah.
little worried when that goes down for a while. But it seemed like there was always occasional news about work being done on it. It always seemed to kind of have some work done. So I was hopeful, but
They can't afford another attraction in that part of the park to go down or be empty.
Yeah,
I mean, because you'll have Tron, you'll have Space, you'll have whatchamacallit?
Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear, thank you. And then there's nothing, and then the racetrack. But then you'll have just basically all empty buildings,
right?
Otherwise, so good to know. Good to know.
And then the last one that I saw was the Swan Reserve Hotel, which is the more, I guess, boutique hotel that's going up next to the Swan. They announced that it's set to open in July. And we've talked about this on the show before, but I think what's really nice about it is it's actually going to have, I think about half the rooms are regular rooms, and then half of them are going to be family suites.
I'm still waiting on pricing.
I know. I'm sure it won't be. Based on the concept art, they look pretty kind of upscale, stylish. But still, I think I have 3 kids. Jason, you always usually go with at least your mother-in-law and stuff like that.
It's more 6 now.
Yeah, you're 6 now, so it's more options for beyond 4 people is always, I think, a good thing.
It's always good, but like it can't be priced at like $700 a night. Because like what is? I don't even know what like the only party of 6 at Disney is Art of Animation, and I think it's at Music. I think.
Yeah, they have. One of the All Stars has family suites. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like families. It's like either $350 to $500 a night, roughly, depending on the time of year. And I mean, I'm all about like better accommodations, but like it's $700 a night. I can't justify that.
So yeah, that's a good point about what pricing will be, but glad to see it.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to the big thing.
Whoa!
Sorry. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm calling you out. The toll booth change was.
Oh, that's right. I keep tweeting.
You keep harassing me on Twitter.
Tony, I don't know if you've seen these, but if you follow a lot of the kind of the bloggers that do all the updates on Twitter, they've been talking about how they're redoing like the toll booth and these new the entranceways when you get onto property. How they've painted them and they've redone them, and it seems like every day there's a new post because they've gotten like another 4 square feet of like paint done. So
we really are a sick bunch, aren't we?
We really are.
No, every time Blog Mickey says, "Look, the painted another color on the castle," type of thing, and it's just like I'm just like, "Oh, great." Thanks for letting me know. It's like somebody's dangerously driving their car, taking shots. I'm like, hey guys, just give me a picture when it's done. Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't need a daily update on. Anyway,
and I see that these are being advertised as being one of the things done for the 50th anniversary, and so on the on the Disboards, Ryan Teets, friend of the show, always puts that in the thread about the 50th anniversary. I think the last 10 updates have just been about these things being updated. So I'm waiting to actually get to go on the 50th, and we'll get
Ryan is thorough.
We'll have the the T-shirts that say I went to the 50th and all I got was a new toll booth paint, whatever, like that.
I heard that's where they're doing the ceremony, though.
Yeah, that's true. They're not even going to do it at the Magic Kingdom. They're doing it right at the entrance. The only thing that's done. All right. So now I can finally get into the big thing about the Investor Day. So we have this huge, basically, packet of information was released with all the new announcements coming. It's very heavy on media things, so like movies and a lot about what's coming to Disney Plus. Just as a quick overview, they announced roughly 10 new Marvels and 10 new Star Wars series that are going to be coming over the next few years. Roughly 15 Disney live action, Disney animation, and Pixar series. 15 Disney live action, animation, and Pixar features all coming to Disney Plus as well. Couple thing they kind of slipped in there, though, that the price point for Disney Plus will be going up by $1 in March.
Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with as much as they're investing in it, it's still quite a bit cheaper than Netflix and stuff. But even better that I invested in that D23 bundle price. So the more that goes up, the better deal that is. Yeah.
So here's my take on the whole thing. Is just before we get into like everything else. I love just the Disney Plus stuff. I love it as a platform, and I love how Disney's investing in it.
Oh yeah,
Because the only other streaming platform that gets this heavy of an investment is Netflix. And even Netflix has a couple good series that's like their tentpole series. It seems like Disney Plus is having a monstrous selection of tentpole properties
right.
from Mandalorian. Let's just get into the Star Wars
Yeah,
stuff because that's what I'm
yeah.
excited
So I'm
about.
gonna go. I'm gonna go in the order that they're in this document. So it's not that I'm picking favorites or anything like that.
And I'm
But
sure you'll share it on social media. I know you
absolutely,
retweeted it once
yeah,
at some point, but go ahead.
yeah. So they actually started out with Lucasfilm, starting with what's going to be going to Disney Plus. So I think I'll just kind of list them off quickly, and if anybody wants to comment about any of them,
No, don't go
just
quick.
speak
We'll
up.
go one by one.
Oh, okay. Well,
Because
good.
let's because it's the first two,
Yeah,
and I didn't know. I just started reading this, and
yeah,
I guess I skipped over this before. So the first two are the Ahsoka and Rangers of the New Republic.
right.
I just saw the comments or the text that two new series from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Right.
I assume that they've had a hand in all of guiding all of these things, right? I'm
Right.
assuming that, but they're going to have special. I'm assuming they're going to be intimately involved with these two,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
and these two other ones are the ones that take place sort of in the Mando universe. They're all in that same time frame and same area of the galaxy and stuff like that. So obviously everyone's expecting there to be crossovers and maybe some big movie event at the end of all three of them coming together or something like that. But
So
sounds good.
as we expected, Ahsoka's going to be a limited series,
Correct.
right? Just like Kenobi, correct?
Correct.
Kenobi is going
Yeah.
to be limited as well. I like it limited
Hmm.
because Ahsoka's such a powerful character, but she's also a troubling character. Tony, you and I had a brief conversation about Star Wars
Mhm.
before we started recording, where we both hung our heads in shame as we decried our dislike of the sequels.
Yes.
And Phil and I have talked about this every single Friday about how the timeline for Star Wars is just a mess. Like the character of Ahsoka herself is very troubling for everything. I mean, I can't blame them, but like, they keep building more stuff up about a series that's been going for 40 years, and that did not have the original scope back then,
Right.
right? So, Tony, what do you think about Ahsoka as a character? Are you like me that didn't watch the Clone Wars and now is trying to catch up, or were you a fan all along?
I did not watch the Clone Wars. It's on my list, but that part I still have not gotten to yet.
You're so okay. So you're in my boat, right? I never watched any of the cartoon stuff.
Yet.
Then I realized it's got really great characters in it, and now I should probably figure that out. So, all right. So I like how Ahsoka is limited because now you're not going to get into too much trouble with this problematic character that everybody loves. Great character, but it offers issues with the timeline. I think.
Right.
What do you think about Rangers, Phil?
I think
What's your
it's
initial impression?
yeah. I mean, I think if it's leaning into the X-wing pilots we've met and whether Cara Dune's going to be in it as a marshal and stuff like that, I think it's sort of that idea of these part of the New Republic that's out on the outer rim that can't really control anything, and it's gonna. I assume it'll lean heavy into sort of the Western type setup. I think it could be neat. This one just says live action series, so I guess it's not a limited one. So it could go on for a while. I guess you could keep sort of introducing new characters into that one. So
I think it's going to be more episodic than
yeah.
storyline driven.
Hmm.
Like it's just going to be you're going to be introduced to a bunch of characters that are going to be like the sheriffs, right? And maybe Cara Dune's in it prominently. Maybe she's not. I don't know if they've gotten her to be like the main character. But you're just going to see the opposite view of the Outer Rim,
Yeah.
essentially. Mandalorian. Din is just basically the seedy portion of it, the bounty hunter, all the thieves. Then you can see the opposite side of it, the good guys trying to
Right.
instill order. So I think it's got a nice reflection.
Yeah.
It should kind of beef up the story a little bit. And I have a comment once we get to the movies on Star Wars too, but this
Yeah.
kind of leads into that.
So the next one is Andor, which follows the character Cassian Andor that was in Star Wars Rogue One. So it'll be, I think, a lot about kind of the start of the rebellion. So I think we've talked about this a little bit before about that time frame. Like,
We talked about this yesterday when we
yeah,
recorded the Mando episode.
And with Rogue One being like the exception to the rule for the Disney Star Wars movies, that was an exciting one to hear about. Like, okay, that we know they can do the story well, so it'll be cool to see it as a show.
No doubt about it. I don't really care about Cassian's character, only because you know the end of his character, right? So I always dislike, you know where the character ends up, so there's really no drama about the character, right? You know he survives to at least make the movie Rogue One.
Right.
So he's never
True.
in danger. So if they kind of don't focus on him as like, you know, as a prominent role of like mystery or whatever, because you know where he ends up. But if it's more of a documentary type of feeling, like introduce you to the characters, it's a history lesson, and it's a fun show about it, I think it's going to be very successful if they kind of take that angle.
And I see, there's a number of really good actors in there, and then including Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. So I think seeing her more
That's a
in the
stellar
story, I think that'd be
cast.
nice. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think it's going to be. I think if anything, this is going to be overproduced for
Right.
a Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
But you know what? If they're going to spend money on it because Disney making a ton of money off of Disney Plus, go for it. I'll take it.
Next one is the aforementioned Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and the big news about this one is that Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, is going to be in it,
All
including
the millennials will
and
love him.
played by Hayden Christensen.
You
So,
say that was literally what I was going to say, because as someone who grew up with the prequels, I think I got 20 texts after that came, because my friends were just flipping out, so excited about this one.
Tony, let me date you because I'll date
Sure.
myself. When the Phantom Menace came out in '98, I was
Yep.
graduating high school.
I
Where
was
were
8 years
you?
old.
There you
8
go.
years old, going to see it with my parents in theaters, not knowing what Star Wars was really, but my
Oh, that was
parents,
perfect for you.
yeah, my parents saying, this is a big thing. We have to go see this. And I got to be honest, I have a soft spot for the prequels because of that.
well, sure.
Now I have to call you out. How were you that age and saw the Phantom Menace, yet you never watched the Clone Wars? And either live or later on in life.
Because my Star Wars journey is very odd. Up until like 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't see the originals. I was a prequel guy through and through.
Whoa!
I know. And then when Star Wars started to get more incorporated into the parks, I was like, all right, I have to like kind of do my research almost on this stuff. So I started really getting into it.
This guy is so unique. We should do just a show on the history of Star Wars. I like because that perspective is like, I don't know if it's unique, but like, it is unique.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know how many other people got introduced to Star Wars with the prequels as a young kid, because even if you took like your parents said, they took you to go see it like at 8 years old, you're really not watching the OT at like 5 or 6. I've tried showing my kids at 5 or 6, and they kind of drift away because there's not action every single second of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and then seeing the OT afterwards, and like how that changes your perception of things. Anyway, a topic for another show. We'll have you back on to talk
Sure.
about it, I think.
Yeah.
Moving through the next one. So the next one is the Bad Batch.
No, stop with Kenobi.
Oh, Kenobi. We're still okay. Yeah.
You like here's I actually looked up a timeline for this.
Okay.
Because I didn't know exactly when it was. I knew it was kind of between. So it's 9 years before New Hope and 10 years after. Because it's 19 years, I think. I looked it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's
pretty much the midpoint.
Sith,
yeah.
Right. So it's. I don't know what the timeline is with the Sith. That's like a week or two of like a series of events, and then so it's basically 10 years after the last episode of the Clone Wars, of the cartoon series.
Right, because that ends with in Revenge of the Sith, so it's
right, the opening scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to seeing. I haven't seen it yet, so no spoilers. Just kidding. But so here's what I'm kind of stoked about. I not that I need to know more about the time, other than I want to know like the history of the empire, how it grew, because it basically this giant empire grew and fell within like a 5-year span. I mean, it's not very long for a huge empire, but anyway, that's a story for another day. Again, about the timeline. 10 years afterwards, you have Vader being a prominent person at this point. He's probably at the height of his power, and they're establishing. I mean, there's people that know more about this era because of the comics and stuff like that. That Vader was a huge part of. What I'm curious Phil, do you know of any reference to Kenobi in the comics during this time period? Do we know anything? I don't really know it.
I'm not as familiar with the comics. I mean, I know that there was one episode of Rebels when Darth Maul goes on to Tatooine and meets Kenobi there, which takes place around this time frame as well, or maybe a little after. So there's been some references, and you've seen Ben Kenobi on Tatooine and various things.
How
Uh,
old is Kenobi going to look in this?
so I know in that episode of Rebels, he looked closer to what he looked like in A New Hope. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of gray hair type thing, but not as old. You know, he didn't have quite the gray in the beard and stuff, but was
Because in the
definitely a little
movies, he's
older.
like 70.
Right. Yeah. So he's definitely, I'd say in there, he was probably 50, 45, 50. So he'd probably be in his 40s in the show.
What are you expecting from the show?
I don't know. And that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I feel the
Um,
exact same.
I mean, obviously there, in some of the books and stuff, Kenobi did leave Tatooine for missions and stuff like that. So I don't know if they'll be getting into that. I mean, I can't imagine just an entire series of him like periodically checking on Luke and how's it going, and then randomly Darth Vader. Like I don't know how it's going to be. So,
Yeah.
um,
You got to have some interaction because you got Hayden Christensen coming back.
yeah, oh yeah.
You
So
got to be able to see his face. I don't think he's playing Vader because Vader's taller than him, right? I don't
right.
know.
Well, it says he's coming back as Vader.
Right, but
Yeah,
like, I'm just curious how they use him.
Yeah,
yeah. I
I'm
mean,
thinking the
some of it
same.
could
Is
be
it going to be in
flashbacks,
the
but
suit? Oh yeah, flashbacks too.
so I'm sure it'll be some of them will be in the suit. Maybe it'll be some when he's in like the back to tank or something like that, where you can see him without the helmet on and stuff. Some of it could be flashbacks. I don't know.
All right, Phil. I looked at the time. We're like way behind because this is not a Star Wars podcast. We have another
Yeah.
one for that. So I'm going to skip ahead. Bad Batch is going to look like a really cool Clone Wars sequel, so to speak.
Yep.
You got Star Wars Visions, more of like a documented, animated short films type of thing. I don't know what they're going to do with it. It's probably going to be pretty cool. You got Lando. Should be fun. Little kind of caper-esque type of show. The one I'm excited about is the Acolyte because it's basically the Sith in the High Republic era. That's gonna be really fun to watch with like really cool Force powers. I bet because it's the height of the
Yeah.
Force, right? So that should be really fun. A Droid Story is going to be another animated series. I'm just going to leave it at that. And then Willow, just kind of thrown in there, which is
Yeah.
going to be kind of
It's
neat.
technically Lucasfilm, but it's not obviously the only one that's not Star Wars.
It's not Star Wars, but it's thrown in there. Okay, keep going. Let's do it like another 5 minutes on the investor stuff.
Yeah.
I'll let you. Oh, actually, no. Feature films. The only thing I want to touch about, and I'm going to stop Star Wars here, is because I took special note of this, and I'm going to steal your cadence here, Phil.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, no, go.
As normal, right? Because that's just what I do, right? They mentioned that the Rogue Squadron is going to be a new feature film. That's the first Star Wars feature film in 2023, I think they said.
Correct. Yep.
And it's going to be in a future era, so post sequels.
Correct.
This is what I've been waiting for, right,
Yep.
Phil? It's like we need to jump in the future, get rid of the Skywalkers, got rid of all the timeline, and start making this stuff the right way. And then comes the Watiti films series, right? So I'm assuming it's another trilogy that he's writing. So I like this. Yeah. I just wanted to point out to everybody that's listening, they have a Rogue Squadron. It's probably going to be a one-off movie that's going to set the scene for the future epic of Star Wars, which all these other Disney Plus things are just building towards, in my opinion. But we'll see. That's all I want to say. That's the future of Star Wars, and I'm excited.
Okay.
That's it. Go forth, my friend. Let's wrap this up.
So, I mean, we're on page 5 of a 27-page document. I don't know if you want me to just keep going and maybe we'll pick it up next week or something like that, or if you want me to cut through.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do part 2. Anything you specifically wanted to mention tonight? We'll dive into more details next week.
I think that, looking at the next section, maybe we'll go through that quickly because that's sort of some of the regular Disney stuff. So not Marvel, not Star Wars or anything like that. They're coming. A lot of things will be coming to Disney Plus. They have Hocus Pocus 2, little things like 3 Men and a Baby. But there's one thing that it just seems so interesting to see the Fox films coming through now too, because there's a new Ice Age movie coming, which you never think of like the Ice Age as a Disney film, but because they bought 20th Century, now it is. So it's all these things kind of coming through. I think are interesting. And one thing that I think could be really fun as a Disney Plus property is they're going to have a night at the museum um, animated show, which I think that's always been a fun movie, and I think that could fit Disney
We
Plus
talked about
really
that
well.
last week.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of Marvel stuff that we
Yeah.
didn't even talk about.
And one other one, which I was surprised didn't get more publicity, but as somebody who grew up with the Disney afternoon cartoons, they're going to have a hybrid live action animated feature on Chippendale's
That
Rescue
stood out to me
Ranger.
too. I was going to talk about it in the next show.
Okay.
I wanted to go all about that. That's
Yeah.
you put that down because
Okay. We'll
I
get
can
into
go
that
another
next one.
20 minutes.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds good. Okay. So I think we'll cut it there. Obviously, we're excited about the Lucas stuff, but there's so much more stuff coming in. I'll tweet out this document, and maybe people could even comment on social media, like what they're most excited for.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it for sure. Phil, before we get to Tony and the actual purpose of this show, we're halfway through. Why don't you tell them where they can find links to Tony's book and this document on social media?
Yes. So as mentioned, I'll tweet out that document. I will have a link to Tony's book that you can purchase right on Amazon, and I'm sure Tony can tell us other places to buy it as well. Um, but also, you can find all the things we're talking about, all links to the shows and everything, and you can get that on Twitter at PodDBC, Instagram the DBC Podcast, Facebook DBC Pod. And just one last reminder: this week we'll be finishing up our charity effort where we're looking to raise money for Operation Santa. We'll be closing that down this week. I'll tweet it out again, and then we will look to adopt the letters for a couple kids and send some gifts to them.
Are we doing our draft next week?
We are, yes. So we already have a very special guest lined up for that episode, and we'll be doing our holiday related draft next episode.
Yes, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. We're being refined. This is our third draft, and maybe we need to go back and like relabel some of the shows with draft. This
For the ones that have that,
letters. Yeah, because we're working on the rules so that we need to be able to trash people as they're like steal picks. We did it a
Right.
little bit last time,
right?
But we need to be more competitive. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, yeah, we'll do a little more pre-work for this one. So
yes.
So with that,
Tony, you wrote a book.
I did.
What is this book?
It is called Disney Details. It's basically an in-depth look at the secret details and backstories of Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. This is part 1 of 2.
So why did you pair Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom?
Because those were the two I felt, quite frankly, had the best cohesive stories and themings. Because the other two, Hollywood Studios and Epcot, they're always just in such a state of flux, and I think they're going to start becoming more cohesive, and I think the story is going to start getting told a little more clearly, especially with Hollywood Studios being finalized in the next couple of years, and after Epcot has its major overhaul. So I want to give those stories the love that they deserve.
So we've got a link to, and it just screwed up my preview. So if you go into the onto Amazon, there's the link I was looking for. Bringing it back up. You can do a link inside. It kind of gives you a nice preview of what to find inside. So, Phil, last week, I think it was last week, we talked about a story. And I'm going to bore the audience because they've heard the story probably 3 times already. But Tony, for your sake, one of my great memories was in 2017. It was my wife and I and our 2 kids at the time. My wife was pregnant. We had a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. We were at the Disney Hollywood Studios. We were waiting for the Star Wars show to kick off, and we were tired, and we just kind of want to sit, wait, get a good seat. And a gentleman was there, cast member, and he was there just to make sure people didn't start sitting in places where they're going to do like the walkthrough areas. He said, "You should sit right here because this is going to be the front row of everything. There's crowds in front of us, but no one will be standing in front of you." And it was raining. He got us like plastic garbage bags to sit on. He got us all set up. We waited for an hour for the show. The whole time he regaled us with details about property, about stories about when they built this and why they built this, and these little hidden Mickeys all over the place. It's just a download of really cool, just like factoids about everything.
That's so awesome.
And as soon as I saw your book, I'm like, that's the thing I thought about. I was like, I wish that I could go down there and just spend a month or 2 studying every single square inch of just the Magic Kingdom, which is what you started. So why don't you tell us a couple of your favorite factoids for the Magic Kingdom and how you do your research? What is your method? You know, just start with the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. I love the details in. We'll start with Main Street.
Of
And
course.
for the research I did with Main Street, I went nuts. I wanted to get like um, information specifically on where these places were inspired because we always hear it was Walt's hometown, Marceline, and then the other story is well that was Disneyland and Disney World was actually Fort Collins, Colorado. And you're a nerd if you know those two things. But I started going a little deeper and just started to realize that it was basically just like the concepts of these areas. And Main Street in Disney World was actually more of a like Eastern seaboard Victoria town. That's what like the actual Imagineers were quoting it using this, and a lot of like Victorian architecture. So I spent like days researching and learning about Victorian architecture and the different aspects of it, and then I would basically find videos of Main Street and just inspect every like square inch of the building to see if I could find certain aspects of this architecture. And I was like, all right, yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm seeing about these places at the turn of the century are showing up here. And each one I would find, I would just be more impressed with the Imagineers and what they built.
So, was there any major difference between the buildings in Main Street Disneyland versus Magic Kingdom in some of the
There,
architecture?
Yeah, Main Street Disneyland is a different kind of Victorian, still the same area, but it was also much smaller. So they had to do different types of architecture for it. The Victorian Eastern Seaboard ones were able to be bigger, a little more grander, simply because Main Street in Magic Kingdom could withstand that more like grandiosity. That's why the buildings are also taller as well because they had the more land.
So one of the things, I mean, I'm just kind of scrolling through the preview that everybody should check out is the music, right?
Hmm.
Phil, what we had, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago? We were talking about favorite
Yeah, the
background music.
favorite background music in the different parks. Yep.
So, do you go in depth with the music? I know you kind of talk about the importance of the music in the parks. What did you follow up with on the music and everything?
For the music, I tried to just give a grasp of why certain things were being used in certain parks. Excuse me, certain areas of the park, like staying on Main Street. I was able to figure out that the current loop was actually inspired by the 1973 movie The Sting, which takes place in the 1930s, and it has that like old time charm to it, that piano ragtime. Um,
Hmm.
like Tomorrowland's music is heavy with synths and very electronic. Um, Fantasyland has more instrumental versions of like the classic um, princess movies, and then there's also like medieval European folk music to fit in with the medieval carnival, celebration theming. So just basically the type of music, and then like a little example, a reasoning of why they picked that music.
What's your favorite area of the park, music wise?
It's gotta be Adventureland.
See, I love Adventureland. Phil, I mean, I can't remember what you said was your favorite part of the park, music wise, 2 weeks ago. Forgive me.
Music wise, I think I had actually picked Tomorrowland for especially at night. How much the music adds to it.
Terrible,
I
terrible
know. I
opinion.
know. Well,
How dare you? How dare you? Yeah, I picked me. It's just for nostalgia. I love the Main Street music because it just sets the tone of the whole day.
Oh yeah.
But my favorite land is Adventureland. I just love walking through there. I think it's probably the most well themed part of
Oh,
Magic Kingdom.
I agree, and I especially with the Jungle Cruise, there is just so much storytelling there. And then when they introduced Skipper Canteen, I was in my glory because I love the stories of the skippers and the history of the Jungle Cruise and its connections. Phil, I know you're a big fan of the
yep.
The Adventurers Club, the connection with that.
I felt you wanted to bring up the Adventure Club because it was your suggested DBC recommends of the week, but I think we're going to recommend Tony's book as a
Yeah,
DVC.
I think that'll be the official
right?
recommend. Yeah.
Please. I don't really know anything about the Adventure Club other than what you could find online and talk about the history and what it was. I've never experienced myself. So, Phil, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Tony, what is your knowledge about the Adventure Club and tying it into the rest of the parks that you could? Is there a part of your book that you talked about the Adventure Club at all, or so kind of elaborate on that for us?
I can. Well, so do you guys know like the story of the Society of Explorers?
Yes.
Okay. And so the Adventure Club plays a part in that because Meriwether Adam Pleasure, he founded Pleasure Island, and then he also founded the Adventures Club, and it was basically like his personal library and museum to store his artifacts gathered from his adventures. And it became like the place that these guys would come and convalesce. They would greet each other with the official greeting of Congalush. And as the generations of SEA members went on, newer generations of the group started to take the missions like less seriously almost, and it became more like status seekers and yuppies, and those were like the characters that we would see in the Adventures Club. Like people, like these people were not, noble explorers. They were here to like show off what they had stolen from some jungles. And that is where the Adventures Club, as it was known to Disney fans in downtown Disney, but that's what it was.
So I'm kind of just skipping around here, Tony. So I'm going to try to see if I can catch you off guard here. So I was talking. I don't think we recorded this last night, Phil. I just decorated my whole house for Christmas. Obviously, I just moved in, so we're a little bit late with that. And we've collected start when I was a little kid with my dad, just like little Christmas village ceramic things to like little homes, like North Pole type of stuff. And I found a box that I never really opened before, and I don't know how it got in there. So I pulled it out, and it was just a really well done ceramic version of the Emporium on Main Street.
Oh yeah.
And I see here in one of your notes that there's a backstory that can be found at the Emporium. Do you want to tell us that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Emporium was owned by a guy. His name was Ash Popham, and you can see a sign at the Emporium entrance, and it says Ash Popham, proprietor. And there's a date behind the sign. It says 1863. So Ash Popham is based on a shopkeep of the same name from a 1963 movie called Summer Magic. And it's a movie about small town America, and he was played by Burl Ives. So Ash decorated the store with elegance and charm, very in line with the rest of the Victorian era of the place. And there's even a decorative medallion that he had commissioned, and it hangs outside of the store. It's still there today, and even when they put the tarps up, when they're doing construction, they have the medallion on the tarps. One thing that I really liked about the story with Ash is that like he kept up with changing times. Walt always called Main Street the place where the candle and the electric lamp met. So Ash was able to even be part of that transition. So the chandeliers in the Emporium, there are gas lights and electric lights on it. And the electric lights point downwards, and then the gas fixtures, because they're older, they fixed upwards. And the business expanded. He bought a portion of Center Street, expanded it with the Emporium Gallery. I can continue. I don't know how much you want to get into it.
No, but, I love these stories. I mean, like there's so much, like there's just all these bullet points, all these different things, and I love just the randomness of the different things that you can. Because I'll take this, and then I'll next time I'm on Main Street, which is my next trip is next October for the 50th.
I'll see you there.
I want to be able to go to my wife like, did you know? And she's gonna be like,
Yeah.
oh, how do you know so much? I'm like, look. I know people, all right? I learned things and I know people. So, I mean, just keep going because I'll listen to this forever. I mean, I'm pretty sure all of our listeners, Phil, I mean, you don't have any objection to listen.
No, this is all great. I mean, I think this is, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you love this stuff too. So.
So keep on going. Like educate us a little. I'm trying to find like the little details. Like everybody knows Main Street and Marceline, and well, not everybody, but a lot of people that are listening to like this podcast have heard those things before and
Mhm.
stuff like that. I'm trying to find things that I've never heard before. And this story about Osh is something I don't think I've ever really. If I've heard, it hasn't been recorded in my brain because that's something that I don't recall. So keep on going. Keep whatever you can throw at us. I love it.
Do you want more with Ash? You want me to try and find other
Yeah, keep
things that you've
going.
like never
Keep
heard?
going. We'll keep going, and then if I want to change it, I'll say, "What
All
about
right, I
this?"
like it. So he bought a portion of Center Street to expand the Emporium, and he called it the Emporium Gallery, and that's the actual Emporium Gallery that we see today. So when it opened, it was called a turn of the century expansion. Now, in the backstory, it opened in 1901, so the turn of that century. And in actuality, it opened in 2001, so it was able to be a turn of the century for both. The window at the entrance advertises the electric lamps are now available. So it's just another reference about how Osh was keeping up with changing times, where electric power was becoming even more prevalent. Um, and then, Ash really took the business seriously. And on the back wall, just like he had something commissioned for the original Emporium, he had a uh, huge mural displayed in the gallery for this new one. And it's basically his employees and the customers. And it says shopping in grand style, personnel luxury, finest fashion. Just another example of Ash, be, really filling the Emporium with the elegance that he felt it deserved.
So, I mean, there's another thing here because we talked about Adventureland, and you also bring up the transition between Main Street and Adventureland is the Crystal Palace. What can you tell us about that Imagineer design?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite. The transitions from each land in Magic Kingdom are all really impressive. And yeah, I love the one with the Crystal Palace because when you're on Main Street, like the Crystal Palace looks very intricately detailed. It's got more Victorian elements, thin columns, well manufactured planting, fully visible windows. And it's like, this is charm and this is elegance of Main Street. And then when you start to cross over and you're on the Adventureland side, it's got these sloppy striped green awnings over the window. The fancy Victorian columns are gone, and the landscaping is not well manicured at all. It's overgrown and dense. So it reflects the less refined and more exotic atmosphere of
See, I
Adventure.
never noticed that
Yeah.
before. I love that little detail. So, what are the other transitions that stand out to you? That because you mentioned there's some great ones. What are some other ones?
Yeah, going from Adventureland to Frontierland is a really good one because the transition is anchored here by Pecos Bill, because the back of Adventureland is themed with like a Spanish colonial style.
Hmm.
Because there's the Pirates of the Caribbean, obviously, and it's not really themed after, except for the attraction. The area is not themed after the Caribbean islands, just the architecture style of the country that colonized the islands. So there's a lot of staccato, thick plaster, adobe mud brick walls in this area, red clay roof tiles. Um, and so when you're at Pecos Bills on that side, the exterior of the building looks very much like that. So there's those thick staccato adobe walls, the red roof tiles, and then you walk in, you get your fixins bar, and then you can come out and you look around and you're like in the heart of Frontierland, and it's typical Western style saloon, and like perfectly, it's like an instant transportation to this old West town, but done so brilliantly.
I gotta check that because the only thing I know about that transition outside of Pirates is that there's a bathroom tucked away there. So if anybody needs more of a less traffic bathroom, that's probably one of the best ones on that side of the park. That's
It is a good one. It is a good one.
a good tip for everybody else. So here's another question because Phil, we talked about this when Len Testa was on the show, and he almost left because I said that they should get rid of the Tom Sawyer's Island and that whole thing over there and just create a new land in that area when they have billions of dollars just to throw at it. Tony, what is your opinion of the transition between Frontier land to like Liberty Square, like that whole kind of, you got to go all the way around from when you're in like near Splash, and you got to go all the way around to the Haunted Mansion. That whole area of the park. What is your opinion on that? Do you like the way it is? Do you like to see some improvements? Got a random question at you.
Yeah. See, there's always room for improvement, but I do love the way it is right now because I also do love the idea.
Safe answer.
Yeah,
Boom.
well, that's true. That's true. The very PC answer, but I'll back it up because when you go from uh, Liberty Square to Frontierland, it's basically the story was like you're traveling through time, you're traveling through America, and how America was being built. So, like Liberty Square is late 1700s after the Revolutionary War, and then just like in the American people, we went west. That's the idea from the transition from Liberty Square to Frontierland. So that's why I do like how that's put right now.
Phil, I think you brought this detail up, and correct me if my memory is wrong. A lot of the transition has to do with the way that they do the actual ground, the transitioning from like wagons to horse to some of
Yeah, I
the
mean that's a lot of the different areas where a lot of the lands, my understanding is progressed through time. Main Street even does that, where you can see the how the light fixtures, and it obviously, to your point with the lights having gas and moving to electric, but they also have the horse-drawn vehicles, but then also the cars, and you can also see that in Frontierland and Liberty Square, where you go from that the East Coast to the West, and you start moving into the Wild West, where you had horses and stuff like that. And I think what I mentioned last time, which was one fun fact I found, was that if you look in the pavement, there's horse hooves in Liberty Square, and when you're near the Haunted Mansion, it's supposed to represent they're bigger hoofs, and they're like the hoofs from that would be pulling the hearse. But then as you go into Fantasyland, it shifts to smaller hoofs, and that's to represent the horse from Tangled. And if you
Mhm.
follow them, it goes over to where the you can find the hidden Pascals, and there's an overturned wagon and has apples that fell out. You can actually even see the apple cores in the concrete, because the idea is Maximus, the horse, found walked to the apples and was eating the apples and stuff like that. So it's just the details of in the pavement everywhere is I guess it's like a lot of things you always have to look up, but at Disney you need to look down a lot
Yeah,
to see
there's
the
also
the
there's
details as well.
peanuts. There's peanuts in the ground in the pavement near Dumbo.
Yeah.
I've seen those actually. I thought
Yeah.
those were pretty good. So, Tony, at doing all your research, what are some details that you were surprised to find that you didn't know before you started doing writing your book?
There was a lot of them. I think the stuff that surprised me the most was just how in depth Animal Kingdom is. That for me, that's my favorite park.
Oh, we have to
Um,
get you on with Ryan,
oh yeah, I know.
another Animal Kingdom
I
fan.
know he's a big fan. Yeah.
I make fun of him all the time.
It yeah. Oh, I love it. I just I can go for an hour about how much I love Joe Rody. And just like when it's like every time I would learn something new or find something new about that place, it could be Africa, it could be Asia, it could be Pandora. It would lead me to like three other things.
Well, let me put it this way: Animal Kingdom is my least favorite park, but my favorite park to walk around because of the details of the park.
Okay.
It's a gorgeous park to like just based on what you said. It's like Joe Rody and his attention to detail and the transitions, and I love I love all the parks. Right, there's no park that I dislike. Let's just put it out that way. But if I had to rank all of them, Animal Kingdom would be at the bottom only because of I like the other parks much better. Some park has to be number four, right? But it is a gorgeous park, though. I'll always say that we have to do another, Phil. I think we have to do another
Battle
park
of the
debate
Parks. Yeah.
next year, and we'll get Tony on and have him. Maybe we'll do teams, right? We'll do park teams, and Tony and Ryan can defend Animal. I'm sorry, Tony. Go ahead. What are some of the details that you loved about Animal Kingdom?
So let me ask you, what's your favorite land in Animal Kingdom?
The one that always stands out is basically Africa. I love the music. I love the drummers, and now I can't remember the name of the food court that just basically reopened again.
Harambe Market.
or Harambe Market, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I that part of the park to me always seems the most alive and in character, if you want to
Mhm.
call it that way. So Africa is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I think Africa's probably my favorite too. So like the backstory of Harambe, which is the town that is in Africa in Disney's Africa, is that it was an East African military fort for European colonial powers. You can even see near Temu Temu Refreshments. It states that Harambe Fort was originally erected in 1420, and you can see the influences of the British Empire that controlled it for a while, because there is a British mailbox located near Mombasa Marketplace. On walls, there's prints that say His Majesty's Imperial Mail Service, and it's faded, showing the age of the place. So it had its European colonialism going on. So the fort eventually burned down, and you can also see when you're walking through the main entrance and the main thoroughfare. It's made up of a series of white bricks on the ground, and that's where the fort walls in Harambe used to
Huh.
reside. Yeah. Um, there's also where Tusker House is. That's an old weathered fort. If you look at it, you can tell that it was made to look like it was burnt in a fire. And
I
across the
never
way,
noticed that.
yeah, across the way, same thing with Tamu Tamu. It was an old fort burned down.
I mean, to me, that's fascinating because I look at it. It's like, okay, it's an African market. I've seen glimpses of, like, the just the atmosphere where they got all the ideas from, but I didn't even know the story behind it, and that's shame on me for not knowing that. So
Well, I think that like so. I think 99.9% of people just walk by, and when I'm with people who don't know the stories, I like to just pause and kind of point these things around, and they always are like, oh my god, like this place, like it's like an actual story going on here.
for everybody out there, I just bought Tony's book just so I could read about all this stuff from Animal Kingdom. So I want everybody out there to either buy it for themselves, buy it for somebody else that's a Disney fan to read about it, because this is some stuff that wasn't that to me. It's like I have no idea. Now let me ask you this: did you spend any time? Well, I would say, did you waste any time? But Phil would say, did you spend any time going over Dinoland USA or Animal Kingdom?
When the way you started that sentence, I knew exactly what was coming. There was no question in my mind Dinoland was coming up, and I'm here to defend Dinoland USA.
I love it. Go
I think it is brilliantly themed.
defend
I
it.
think
Come on.
Restaurantosaurus has some of the best theming on property, and the idea of Chester and Hester's Dinorama, it is. I can understand not liking it. I absolutely understand it, but would you like to know a little bit about it to maybe soften your hatred for
No,
it?
we've gone over the backstory
Yeah.
Okay,
of it,
okay,
right, before on the show. Ryan's defended it. We've told the story. We had some DVC, right? We like Defunctland goes over the history of Animal Kingdom pretty well too. I know the backstory. I've read all about it because I wanted to know why does it look all kind of weird. If
exactly.
I was so unimpressed with the land, the way it was designed, just walking through it, not knowing anything about it. I was like, what were they thinking? Like, there's like
Hmm.
road marks. There's like, it looks like it's a street. Why is this here? Why is this like a cheap fare? And then you go to find out it was made to look like that because the story is great. I just don't think the implementation was very good.
And there is the reality that Disney cut their budget, so Joe
Of
did what he
course.
could.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't. I gained appreciation for what they were trying to do because it makes sense,
Hmm.
right? And the whole story is great. You have the story that goes from dinosaur to, like, the institute where you have the professional archaeologists that are digging up the dinosaurs, and then you kind of go down. It's like a cheap little, carnival type of thing. The dynamic is great. Obviously, they didn't get to do what they wanted to do, and it doesn't, especially with um, the world going down. It's
Yeah, now with
never coming
Preview of
back
a
up
Whirl,
again.
which that was a big part of it, that was kind of the knockoff version of the dinosaur
Yep.
attraction and stuff like that. So, yeah, I really like the area because of the details, but I think I like the backstory and the details more than the land itself. It also
I
doesn't help
do.
that I don't really like Dinosaur the ride, which I know I get heat from Ryan and
I
others
don't like the
about.
ride
But
either. My son hated it. He
yeah,
loves dinosaurs. He thought he was too scared.
Used to be my favorite ride, and now when I go on, I think it's just like I get off and I'm sore.
It's
Like,
cheap though
yeah,
too.
there's a lot of
There's too.
black areas where there's nothing going on.
I think they could have done more with that if they given time. They always could retheme it. But when last time I went last summer, August 2019, and I love all the Ducktales stuff that was in there. Now we're getting
Yeah.
we're getting off target, but we're towards the end of the episode. We're about to hit the hour mark. Tony, I want to give you one other opportunity. What's another story that you love telling in the book that you want to share with the audience that's listening?
Can I do another one about the Adventurers Club and how has
Your choice. Yeah, go ahead.
it's has a tribute to it at Trader Sam's in the Poly.
Mhm.
I love the Poly. It's probably my favorite hotel, and Trader Sam's probably my favorite place on the planet. Um, so there's a framed postcard on the wall in Trader Sam's, and it reads, "There is a man, a handsome man, as adventurous as he can be, and our friend Trader Sam actually knows this man. It's me," and it's signed H. And the H is Hathaway Brown, and he was a member of the Adventurers Club. And so you think that's okay, he just signed the card, that's all it is, but the detail actually goes even deeper because it's a reference to one of the traditions of the club called the hoopla, where they would sing "Where the Saints Go Marching In," and they would mock each other and make their own members, and then Hathaway would always take part in it, and that was how he would start his verses. Um, so the postcard is basically keeping a memory of one of the most favorite traditions of the Adventures Club alive. And I always love to just take a little extra glimpse at it to make sure it's still there and think, all right, the Adventure Club lives on.
See, I really wish we talked about this a bunch a while ago, Phil. That the Adventure Club needs to come back because it was the only Disney-esque adult kind of
Mm-hmm.
entertainment, but that was still not just a bar, right? It had the animatronics. It was fun. And I love how Disney spreads that theming across 3 different platforms: a hotel, what used to be, an adult area, and then a theme park with rides, and now a restaurant also in the Magic Kingdom. And I wish they did more of that. Is there any other kind of like cross property kind of connection with a single theme in any of the parks, or is that the only one, to your knowledge?
I think that's probably the only one, because it is so widespread, like you said, because it connects with. I mean, there's connections to the Adventures Club in like Tokyo Disneyland. So that one reaches,
And
I
in
think,
Hong Kong
almost.
Disneyland with Mystic
Yeah,
Point,
yeah.
I, w-
Oh,
I
that's
actually got
right.
I got
Forgot
to
about
visit
that.
that one, and it's I mean it's heavily into the SEA. It's really great.
Well, Tony, I really appreciate you coming on. If you'd like, we would love to have you back on other times just as a general guest. So you can kind of regale us with all the details and the knowledge that you have when different parts of the park kind of open up or different things happen. You can kind of give us the background. You could be the DBC historian if you want, maybe a little bit. We'll give you a title, impromptu title right now.
I'm honored.
Really appreciate your command of the detail and having all that information at your fingertips. We didn't plan any of this, folks. We didn't have an itinerary and show notes about what I was going to ask him. He pulled all of this from the top of his head. So I really go on Amazon.com, order his book. It is, Disney Details, an in-depth look at the secrets, details, and backstories of Walt Disney World, Volume 1. Do we have Volume 2 coming out anytime soon? Is it in the works?
After a couple research trips in 2021.
Ooh, look
Ooh.
at that. He
Yeah.
gets to say, I'm researching a book. This is why I get to spend the money to go down there.
Yeah.
I love it. I need to start writing books just so my wife allows me to maybe go down there more often. I don't think it's going to work. But Tony, really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing your experiences and your knowledge with the rest of us. Our DBC recommends for this week is obviously Tony's book. and we're going to leave it at that. Phil, anything you wanted to add before we go? Any other kind of announcements or anything else like that?
No, just like we said, we'll have the holiday episode sort of next week. And for those of you that have been enjoying our Mando episodes, obviously this week is the season finale, so that should be a good one.
Now, Phil, did we do anything special for The Mandalorian? I mean, I can't think of anything special that we could do other than maybe talk about it for 2 hours, which would be probably way too much.
Yeah, we might have to break that into a 2-part episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I love talking about Star Wars. I'm super excited about The Mandalorian. And again, Tony, thank you very much.
Thank
Guys
you.
Out there,
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you coming on and being flexible with your time. Guys, have a great week, and we'll talk to you next weekend. Take care, everybody.
Thanks all.